Shalom, shalom. Uh, First and foremost, want to give all glory, all praise, and all honor be to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Um, Also, want to say, shalom. This is your brothers from the Hopeful Elect, man. This is Brother Isaiah. I'm with Brother Azrael, also Brother Obadiah, and we just coming at you with another soul food Sunday lesson, right? I think this is the first one because I didn't get on Sunday last week. So try to do these, pretty consistently every Sunday through the Spirit. We're gonna try to get on and make sure we edify the people. But today's topic, man, is we allow our oppressors to be our influence, and it stems from a conversation that we had with the mother at camp yesterday that had her daughters with her, and it was really a beautiful conversation. It was a beautiful experience, and not only was it a beautiful experience, it was something that I know that if a lot of other brothers and sisters were there to see with their eyes what we seen, I know it would compel us to make sure that we do everything we can in our power to have our daughters raised in like manner, the same way the mother had her daughters raised. Maybe a few differences, but more out in a moral sense, almost along the same lines. So again, all glory goes to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who gives us the opportunity to get on. We want to say shalom to all. We want to say shalom to all the brothers and sisters who's going to tune in and watch this video live. Shalom to the brothers and sisters who may not watch it live but may watch this video following the live session. Also, shalom to all the brothers out there laboring on the highways and byways, pushing this gospel to the four corners of the earth, trying to wake up the elect in the last days. Shalom to the sisters, who's holding their households down while their husband goes out and do the work of the Lord. Shalom to the sisters who may not be married as of yet, but are building themselves up in the spirit to be married, to be able to be a worthy helpmeet, right? Shalom to the brothers who may not be married yet, but are building themselves up in the spirit to be an established head of the household. And I'm not talking about monetary, establishment. We're talking about spiritual establishment, right? But again, a mighty shalom to all the brothers and sisters scattered to the four corners of the earth, whereby we make these videos to do our part in putting our brick in to help build up the kingdom of Israel, right? So without further ado, we can get into the Bible, man. Let's get our first precept of the night, right? The book of Joel, chapter 2, and verse 27. And we're going to start there, and through the Spirit, we're going to go. And whichever brother wants to read, I'm not going to designate. The Lord put it on your spirit to speak up. That's cool. If not, I definitely don't mind. Whichever brother wants to read, you can go ahead and read first.
I get it, King. This is the book of Joel, chapter 2 and verse 27. And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God and none else, and my people shall never be ashamed.
Could you read that last part again?
And my people shall never be ashamed.
Kind. So I want to start this off by saying it's important to know that when the Lord said we should never be ashamed, he meant it, right? The Lord's word doesn't return unto him void, unlike man's word. I've said some things before that didn't come to pass. I've said some things that, I'm going to do this day and I'm going to do this that day, but it didn't come to pass, whether it had been obstacles that prevented me from doing it or whether I just didn't do it because I was being lazy, right? But that's the difference between myself and the Most High God. Whenever he speaks, the Most High God, it never returns unto him void. So when he said we should never be ashamed, he meant it, and we need to stand 10 toes down on understanding how important and how powerful the words that Joel, the minor prophet, prophesied is, right? Let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 8 and verse 20. Isaiah 8 and 20, right?
This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 8 and verse 20. To the law and to the testimony, and if they speak not according to this word, it's because there is no light in them.
So again, the word of the Lord does never return to him void. It has never returned unto him void. Therefore, if any man speak, right, and that thing he speak does not come to pass, you know he wasn't of the Lord. So you wasn't, you know, it wasn't no light in him, right? It tells us that in the law in Deuteronomy chapter 19. It tells us that in the law in Deuteronomy chapter 13, that you got to beware of these false prophets. You got to beware of these false prophets, right? Which go out and say things, and they say they come in the name of the Lord, but that thing which they spoke does not come to pass, right? Hey, to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them, right? 9 times out of 10, prophets, when they were sent, they always said, "Thus saith the Lord," right? And you knew it was of the Lord because that thing that they spoke came to pass shortly following, or it will come to pass, or, you know, has came to pass, right? A little bit, I guess you could say later on down the line, but it still came to pass nonetheless. So we go in here to establish the fact that anytime we as people who believe in the Bible, right? We as followers of the Most High God, who people call God and some people call Jehovah, but we know him as Yahweh, right? We have to understand that if they're not speaking according to his word, we don't need to follow after what they say, right? We don't need to take what they say as, I guess you can say, doctrine, or take what they say as truth. There's a reason for that. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4. Deuteronomy chapter 4, and we can start at verse 6. You can keep it wide, right? Matter of fact, we're going to start at verse 5. Deuteronomy 4 and 5. We're going to start there.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4 and verse 5. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this is a great nation, is a wise and understanding people.
Right. So again, the Lord gave us statutes and judgments, right? And we were supposed to take those statutes and judgments, and people were supposed to look at us and say, we're the great nation. We're the wise and understanding people. But the problem is, when Joel said, you shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and I am the Lord your God, and none else, and my people shall never be ashamed, we didn't truly believe that, you know? We didn't truly follow that prophecy. And the problem is that that caused us to even forget what Moses gave us through the spirit and power of the Most High God, right? So instead of us being looked at as the great nation, right, we looked at other nations as great because of the possessions that they had, because we forgot our law, right? We forgot our prophets. When Isaiah said to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, there is no light in them. Other nations weren't speaking according to this word. Why weren't they, right? Let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 147 and verse number 19, right? Why weren't these other nations speaking according to the word of the Lord, you know? And that's this is not even to say that the Lord has not dealt with other people from other nations. He has throughout the scriptures. We can see that. The problem is he never dealt with nations the way he dealt with Israel, right? He only made a covenant with Israel. He showed his word unto Jacob, right? Let's read this. Psalms 147, starting at verse 19.
This is the book of Psalms, chapter 147 and verse 19. He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord.
Right. Listen, they have not known his judgments. He showed them unto Jacob and Israel, right? Again, it's the same people, Jacob and Israel, the same people, right? What does it say in verse 20? He hath not dealt so with any nation, right? We were the only nation he dealt with like that. Let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 4. We're going to further substantiate that even what's written in the Psalms is true, and it goes back to the law. Let's go back to Deuteronomy 4. Let's start at verse number 7, right? Go to verse 7. Let's read this.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4 and verse 7. For what nation is there so great, who hath God so nigh unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon him for?
Right. What nation has a God like our God that's so close to us, right? Let's keep reading. Verse 8.
Verse 8, and what nation is there so great that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law which I
So
set
righteous as
before you?
what?
As
So
all this law.
right. So righteous as all this law. Literally, all this law which he has set before us this day. Right? Let's read verse 9.
Verse 9, only take heed to thyself and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thy eyes have seen, and lest they depart from thy heart all the days of thy life. But teach them thy sons and thy sons' sons.
Right. The Lord said we should only take heed to ourselves. Why? Because if we don't, somebody gonna give us gifts and we gonna start to destroy ourselves, right? Again, it's against the law to take a gift, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy 16 and 19. All of the things that we're going to right now is kind of setting the stage as for why it's important to know that we shouldn't let our oppressors be our influence, right? We can shut the lesson down right now and just leave it at the precepts we just read and tell you, hey, take what we read and read it for yourself and make sense of why we saying our oppressors should not be our influence, right? Let's read this in Deuteronomy 16 and 19.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16 and verse 19. Thou shalt not rest judgment, thou shalt not respect persons, neither take a gift, for a gift does blind the eyes of the wise and pervert the words of the righteous.
The reason that the Lord said only take heed to thyself in Deuteronomy 4 and 10 is because he knew that gifts, it will blind the eyes of the wise and it was going to pervert our words, right? So when people came in and they started speaking these things that were not of the law and testimony, like Isaiah said in chapter 8 and verse 20, right? To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, there is no light in them. We started following that non-existing light that these other nations bared, right? Or bore or possessed, whichever way you want to slice it, right? And we started to take these gifts and it caused us to start perverting our words, perverting our judgment, right? It started lukewarming us, dumbing us down, right? And in a sense, it did it. And you know what came from it? Stockholm syndrome. Now we can't let our oppressors' ways go. Now, when we go out and teach our people the Bible, we teach them the covenant. Now, when we go out and teach our people the Bible, we teach them the covenant of the Lord. You know what happens? A lot of our people buck up against us. They reject the word of God, right? They mock the messengers of God. Why? Because they feel bad for even having a thought that they are better than the people that oppress them. The people that intentionally wanted them to follow after their ways, that had no light in them, spoke all these things, right? And caused us to pervert our judgment, especially against one another. How do we know this to be true? Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28. Hey, Deuteronomy, like almost my favorite book, though. I'm not gonna lie, because again, it contains so much context, right? It contains so much context of the law. You know what I'm saying? Like, it contains so much context of the things that we should and shouldn't be doing, right? And the Lord made it plain upon tables when he gave it to us, right? The brother Deacon had a song that dropped last summer. It was called One More Chance, and I think he did it with the brother Yahweh from Sons of Thunder Israelites, right? But the way Deacon started the song was hard. The very first thing that he said was write the vision down, make it plain on tables. And that's what the Lord did. He made it plain. All you got to do is read and go precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little, and you'll understand it. But the problem is our oppressors don't, because it wasn't given for them to, but it was given to us. So let's read this in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse number 15.
Like I said, point, King.
Con, go ahead.
Yeah, man, and that's a good point, man, because we are the ones that's supposed to be teaching the Bible, right? The heathens aren't supposed to be out on the streets trying to teach our people the word. That we are the ones that were set up by the Most High, the Israelites. We are set up by the Most High to teach the world, not the heathens teaching us about the Bible. Because, like the brother said, they're not going to. They don't. It's not was given to them. The Most High to make a covenant with them, so they don't really know the how to break it down and how to teach it, because it wasn't given. That spirit wasn't given to them. This is why he called his people, and the prophets were the Israelites. The true prophets of the Lord were the Israelites, right? So yeah, man, we was made to be the teachers of our people, right? And that we're supposed to be a light to the world, but not them trying to teach us the Bible. That's why we so screwed up and we in Christianity and all that stuff throughout history, because the heathens been teaching us, trying to tell us about our book. Well, that's impossible. But you got it, King.
Con. Hey, that's a mighty point, though. That's going to go right into what we're talking about. Let's read this in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15, and then we're going to jump down to 54 and 56.
Con. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Now, it's my position that curses are not necessarily a good thing, right? At least not all the time. But I wouldn't even call it, if it was good, I wouldn't even call it a curse. I would call it a blessing, because the Lord does, right? If you read Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 14, it's filled with straight blessings. But 15 through 68 is straight curses, right? So let's read this in 54, right?
Verse 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil towards his brother, and towards the wife of his bosom, and towards the remnant of his children, which he shall leave.
Look, this is a curse that directly affects God's people, right? And when you look up statistics, I know we did lessons on this before, we say it on the street, and majority of you may watch this and already know this, right? But it's no denying the fact that the Lord wrote this in this book about these people, right? And now you see in America, right, the nation that leads the people the most in single parent households is our people, right? So-called Negroes in America, right? We deal with it the most. Now, there's other nations like Hispanics, right? They deal with it just almost as much, right? But again, number by number, our people deal with it the most, right? The so-called Negroes in America, right? Now read verse 56.
Verse 56. The tender and delicate woman among you, which will not adventure to set the soles of her feet upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil towards the husband of her bosom, and towards her son, and towards her daughter.
Right. So again, we can see how a curse, right? We've read 3 curses, or we read 2 curses, right? But we can see how these 2 curses have a direct correlation on what's happening in our societies, Black and Hispanic communities in today's time, right? I mean, it's no denying the fact that when the Lord, again, like I said at the beginning of the lesson, when the Lord speaks something, it does not come back to him void. The Lord is not going to say something and it don't come to pass. So we have to take heed when the Lord speaks. That's why he told us to only take heed to ourselves. He knew what he was doing. He knew that if we did it, we was going to take these gifts, because we was going to listen to these people that had no light, and we was going to forget that we shouldn't be ashamed of walking in our covenant, walking in our law, statutes, and commandments, our culture, our heritage, the household structure the Lord set up for us. We was going to forget that if we started intermingling with these other nations like we did. And we did, and you can see the results of that, right? Mm-hmm. And there's no reason that anybody, especially if you're a black and Hispanic man living in America, there's no reason that you should be thinking that our people as a whole are winning, right? There's no reason you should be thinking that the Lord is gracious. Well, no. Let me rephrase that. The Lord is gracious and merciful. There's no reason you should be thinking that America is gracious, right? And America is a great land. And America, is a system that is desired, and we should desire to be a part of that system. That's a lie, right? Why do I say that? Because again, America was not our land. It was not the land that the Lord promised to us when he gave us a covenant, right? America is not the system that the Lord set up for us to be in rulership over. And it's not the system that the Lord wants us to partake in, right? I got one more precept before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of what we're getting into tonight, right? Let's go to Revelation chapter 18 and let's read verse number 4, right? Because again, I'm not saying this for those who watch and for those who may not understand the Israelites in its entirety. Our message is to teach God's people the gospel, right? Wake them up. Isaiah chapter 61, Luke 4:17 and 18, right? Our job is to come out here and preach the unedited truth about the word of the Lord. The problem is people have conversations, interactions, and they take narratives and they spin them, right? But from the mouth of the brothers that's on the screen, right, the 2 or 3 witnesses, that's how you know the matter is established. We come out here to wake the people up and edify the people. We don't come out here to tell the people to go do something stupid that'll get you locked up or laid down, right? We come out here to tell the truth. And the truth is that this system was not set up for us and we should never took part of it. You wanna know why? Because we allowed our oppressors to be our influence and it messed up our households, right? Let's read this. Revelation 18:4.
Salakia, I wanted to also say too, man, how the Stockholm syndrome worked, like the brother mentioned earlier, was it'll be people that'll watch videos like this and they'll say, "Nah, that's not true. You're lying." Because I've listened to a lot of I've listened to Asian pastors, I've listened to white pastors, and I learned a lot from them. And they seem like they know what they're talking about. The thing is this, right? They don't know what they're talking about when it concerns the Bible. Salakia for my dog barking in the background. They know what they're talking about when it concerns Christianity. So like they know how to talk good about the religion that they made up, right? They know how to make the Bible conform to their religion, right? Like a lot of people know how to make the Bible conform to their thoughts, but they're not actually teaching it, right? So we got to be careful to defend these other nations just because we want them to feel good, right? And we don't want to bring up the past and we don't want to make them feel inferior. We got to just let black and white, like the brother said, playing on tables. We got to let black and white be black and white. What's the word say? Who's supposed to be given the word? If it's outside of that, it's a sin. Point blank, period. You don't want to be caught in sin. So you got to do what the Lord say. But Khan, I yield.
Khan, that's a mighty point. Because again, even if you do take the approach of watching this video and saying, nah, he's spewing lies and deceit and he don't know what he's talking about. Again, I also stated earlier in this video too that we have seen the Lord use people outside of Israel to, I guess you could say, in a sense, give Israel glory, right? So that's not to say that the Lord can't use people from other nations to push his word out, because I would be a liar if I said that. The problem is, though, is like the brother Azrael was alluding to, it's our book, right? And we got to stop looking at it as a universal religious book. It's not a universal religious book. It's a book that I think everybody in the world will subscribe to one day, you know, but it's also a book that was given to a certain people group, and they were supposed to be the people who executed the judgments, right? The sacrifices, everything out of that book on behalf of the people. But we'll get into that, right? Let's read this in Revelation 18:4.
Okay, baby. Look, that's how you open it.
It's the book of Revelation, chapter 18 and verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues."
Right. We need to come out of the system, you know. Again, we allow our oppressors to be our influence. I watched the movie Sinners, and I'm going to tell you the truth. One thing I talked with my wife about that I took away from it is that we're always letting other nations kind of put us in a bind, you know, and we don't ever really do nothing about it. We just kind of sit back and accept it. Like there was a scene, right? I don't know if you watched it. If you haven't watched it by now, I'm going to spoil it anyway. So because I mean, you could have the opportunity to do, but if you watch the movie, then you remember the scene where those vampires were standing outside their juke joint, right? And the only way those vampires can come in is if somebody invited them in. You got a room full of Jake in there, right? You got a room full of Jake in there that's like, we just got to endure until the morning. You know, they can't come in unless they get invited in. But you got this one Asian woman, because she knew her husband was outside, right? And he turned into a vampire. She went ahead and invited them in to fight. And it ended up costing all these brothers and sisters their lives, all because of her emotions, all because of her actions, all because of her selfishness and stubbornness, right? They could have had time to put together a better plan. They could have had time to, you know, think about other avenues they could take to overcome this situation. But no, because she was mad in the moment, she didn't want to restrain her spirit. She didn't want to restrain her spirit. She ended up inviting them spirits in, and they ended up taking those people out. Now, that could be God's judgment too. You know, there's a two-way street to look at it. You could say, yeah, that's her fault, but we could also look at it as the Lord used her to execute the judgment on the sinners, right? Now, I'll also say this too. The reason that those people even turned into vampires is because of the white woman that one of the twin brothers who's played by the actor Michael B. Jordan was dealing with, right? Now, again, in the law in the law of God, there is no sin against sleeping with an Edomite woman, right? But we can see even with Solomon that it's not necessarily wise to sleep with women specifically of other nations, right? It's not wise to do so because again, they have other gods that they serve. And we just did a lesson last week on how men run out of their wits for women. So men will literally give themselves over to women and be subject in servants to women, all because they desire to be with the women, right? And there's nothing wrong with brothers wanting to have wives. There's nothing wrong with a man looking for a wife, right? The problem comes in is where we start to give ourselves over to women as if they're our God. And that's not the case. But that's the lesson that we covered last week. Y'all should go check it out. I think what way we got on Monday? We got on late Monday night last week, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Late Monday night last week. It was a THE late night. Y'all got to go check it out, right? But nonetheless, sticking to the topic of discussion, again, you got to remember that at the end of the day, the Lord gave us these commandments for a reason, and he ordered them the way he did for a reason. So we have to be a little bit more bold, right? Speak a little boldly as we ought to speak more and more for the commandments of the Lord and stand 10 toes for the commandments more and more. Because why? The Lord is in the midst of Israel, and he's the Lord our God and none else, and we should never be ashamed. Now, this is what's going to lead into the meat and potatoes, right? Let's pull up that those documents. So you can start with the Seneca Falls, right? So what we're looking at right now is a document called the Declaration of Sentiments. The Declaration of Sentiments, right? And what the Declaration of Sentiments is, it's a, I guess you could say, a document that was kind of set up like the Declaration of Independence by a woman named Elizabeth Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And her whole reason for having this, you know, I guess you could say having this, I don't know what's the word that I'm looking for. The whole reason for this document is because there was a woman by the name of Elizabeth Cady Stanton who thought that, I want to be equal to a man, right? Again, the problem is, number one, this was a white woman. The problem is, number two, the white woman was wanted to go against the societal norm of a structural household setup. The problem is that also, not only with wanting to be equal to somebody that you'll never be equal to, right? It's also a problem because not only did it affect white women, it also affected black women and Hispanic women, even in today's time, right? This document was set up in, I want to say, the year of 1868, when they had this big meeting and they had all these signatures, right? But let's read a little bit on this, right? So the Declaration of Sentiments, and everybody can visit this website, is ECSWC. So it stands for Elizabeth Cady. It stands for Elizabeth Cady Stanton Women's Sororium.org, right? Sortorium, right? And it's pretty much a website detailing who she is, her works, her life, pretty much, and her purpose. The Seneca Falls, right, Declaration, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, 1848, Salakia, 1848, right? Let's read this at the top. So let me see, where do I want to start at? We can start at the top. We're not going to read this whole thing, y'all. We're not going to read this whole thing. But I'm going to read a little bit at the top. So it's one, Declaration of Sentiments. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one portion of the family of a man to assume Salakia. Let me scroll in just a little bit because my eyes full screen.
Lucky, I can read it.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Declaration of Sentiments. when, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one portion of the family of man to assume among the people of the earth a position different from that which they have hitherto occupied, but one to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes that impel them to such a course.
So pretty much summing it up, she's saying that, hey, we're gonna have to switch these roles, right? Now let's keep reading.
It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal.
Now that line was taken from the Declaration. That line was taken from the Declaration of Independence. And in the Declaration of Independence, it actually reads, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. But because, again, her whole idea is the woman is equal to a man, she revised that line and put it in her document, the Declaration of Sentiments, and said, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal, right? Again, I'm going to stand on the hill that will never be true, that all men and women are created equal. Men have parts that women don't have. Women have parts that men don't have. That's not equality. Women have to have periods. Men don't. That's not equality. Physically, a lot of men are stronger than women. That's not equality, right? So there's a difference in anatomy between a man and a woman that will never make us equal. Now, if you're talking about in a religious, structural, cultural sense, I still even say they're not equal, right? But we'll get into that, right? Let's keep reading.
I think the brother Buck got up.
Oh, go ahead, but my bad.
Cause you good, King. I had seen this video on Instagram, man. I think it was an uncle and his niece, and they was finna get ready to move this big old dresser. Now his niece was a dyke.
I
You see
seen
that?
that
You know what
video.
I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I seen it.
his niece was a dyke, and he was basically she was trying to get him to take all the drawers out to make it lighter to pick up. He was like, "No, we ain't doing all that. We ain't doing all that." And then I think she said in the sense of, oh, come on, I'm a female, something like that. She said, "I'm a female," and he was like, "Look, he was like, listen, niece, I'm preparing you because these men out here, they're not gonna look at you as a female. They're gonna look at you as a dude. You're not gonna get that same treatment as the average woman when they're trying to pick up a dresser. They're gonna look at you like, okay, you want to be a man. They're gonna treat you like a man. Put that dress up, man. So even then, on the sense of that even when you may have women that want to be men, you can just tell like there's certain things that's in our body is different. They don't have that type of, I would say, strength like a man has when it comes to like stuff like that. But you got it, King.
Con. You got to think like too. Again, it's just structural difference. It's structural differences between a man and a woman that will never make us equal, and I'm okay with that. And women should be okay with being women. Men should be okay with being man, and women shouldn't want to desire to do the things men do. Neither should the man desire to do the things that women do, right? Because again, the Lord gave us order and structure in His Word, and we shouldn't deviate from that because of how other women may feel, especially women of other nations, right? That has been the problem with the so-called Negro community and the Hispanic community in America, is that we always tend to let our oppressors be our influence. They influence us to do these things and we follow after them, and it destroys us in the long run, right? Nothing good ever came from when our oppressors did something, we did it. Nothing good ever came from that. Historically, nothing good has ever come from it, right? Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, right? Who did that hurt in the long run? The matter of fact, abortion clinics were set up to destroy Black families. They were just set up to kill Black babies, right? Because they want to stop our reproduction, because they don't want us to be like we were in Egypt, more and mightier than them. And then all of a sudden, if Russia decides to come over here and nuke this joint on up, they don't want us to join with the Russians to fight. It's the same thing that happened in Egypt. Like we read at camp yesterday, the brother Azrael had me read Exodus 1:11, where Pharaoh realized, dang, these Israelites, they're more and mightier than us. They waxing strong, and they're in our land. Hey, we got to set over them taskmasters before they join to our enemies and fight against us. We got to control these folks before it get uncontrollable. So that's what they did. And it's the same thing that Margaret Sanger did with Planned Parenthood and put all these abortion clinics on the corners in every black community that you've seen. Why? Because they want to control us and they want to keep our population low. And the best way to do that is give us these gifts and then give us an opportunity. And not only give us these gifts, but then they give us things to kind of like, well, I'll even say that's a gift to an extent. Because if I can change the cultural or the not the cultural, but if I can change the psychological construct of a woman and how she views a child and how she views birth, then an abortion clinic may be a gift to some women because some women is like, I don't feel like having this baby. I don't feel like having this baby. Let me abort it. Right? And that's the problem with society. We allow our oppressors to be our influence. So white women said it's okay to have abortions, and we followed what the white women did. White women said, hey, we need to be equal to men. And now guess what? We have a lot of sisters that spew that same ill retort in today's time. Now let's keep reading this document a little bit.
It says that they are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of those who suffer from it to refuse allegiance to it and to insist upon the institution of new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Right. So pretty much in short, she's basically saying that, look, this document says life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's what the Declaration of Independence said. So if there's a people that's feeling not like they have liberty and they're not really feeling like they got the pursuit of happiness, right? They feel like their life is being taken from them, right? They're forced to do things that they don't want to do. Hey, look, it pretty much we need to go ahead and redo this whole, we need to rewrite the will in a sense. And that's all she's alluding to. We need to rewrite the will. So the will was, again, the historical setup of a household. The man go out and work, the women stay home, take care of the children. But again, there was women who didn't like their roles. So then you had a woman like by the name of Elizabeth Cady Stanton to come out, speak up against it, and create a whole declaration of sentiments, right? Pretty much the beginning of the feminist movement and the structural change of a household setup historically.
Can I read this part?
Go ahead.
It says, such has been the patient sufferance of the woman under this government, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to demand the equal station to which they are entitled. The history of mankind is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations on the part of man toward woman, having indirect object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over her. Right? Reading that just to, pretty much confirm what the brother just said. All this is resentment towards the man. That's all it is. And when you sit back and think about your innate feelings and your innate ability and your innate nature, right? We all look at our parents a certain way, right? The parents that were in our life, right? Whether it was mom and dad, whether it was just mom, whether it was just dad, the relationship that we have with them is because there's an innate spirit in us to respect them and to love them as our parent, right? Because whether we remember all the stuff they did for us or not, we know that they did it. And so like there's an innate spirit on us, right? So don't get it twisted. There's an innate spirit on a man to just know I need to protect this woman. It's an innate spirit on a man that if if all hell broke loose and then you're in a building and you're the only man and there's 3 women in that building, for some reason that man just feels like he has to protect those 3 women. But just like that, there's an innate feeling in women to know that they are inferior to men. It's innate in them. When they go against that feeling, right? That's when they open themselves up to harm. That's when they open themselves up to actual unfair treatment. That's when they open themselves up to a lot of hurt, like Buck was going into. They're gonna have to do stuff they don't want to do, right? But a lot of times resentment will cause you to step out of what you were designed for, right? And your natural innate feelings. The kind I yield.
You go ahead, brother.
Yeah, man, Con. I had seen another video. It was, I think they might have been. It was at a party or something. Like it was an older brother. He was an elder, and it was a sister that was a dyke, and she had a girlfriend. And the brother was trying to talk to the dyke, the sister that's a dyke. He was trying to talk to her girlfriend, and then the sister, the dyke, was she like, hold up. She was like, no, he was like, you go with her, and then she was like, yeah, that's my girl. She did look, yeah, that's my girl. And then bro was like, okay, we finna have to fight for her then. Then the sister was in a situation she didn't want to be in. She like, dang, I don't want to fight him. He's a man. You know, but that's how a lot of brothers look at a lot of our women that want to be in a role of a man. Like, oh, you want to drink like a man, you want to talk like a man, you want to, be, you want respect, right? So you want to fight me then for it. You want me fight? Let me fight you for it then. And she was kind of like looking kind of scared, but a lot of us that shows that role is for a man, right? A woman was never made to try to be a man. That ain't how the Most High made it. But you got it, King.
I think I seen that video, and the dude was like progressively asking for the girl number. And he's like, "Hey, look, I ain't trying to hear that. I'm talking to her. I'm not talking to you."
Yeah.
And the girl he was trying to get the number from, she just smiling and laughing, and the other girl was like, "Bro, move, bro, move, bro." And he's like, "Bro, we can fight about it, but and he was kind of pulling her car like, "I ain't worried about you. I'm trying to have a conversation with her." Yeah. Just letting you know, like even back in the day, we didn't have a lot of the homosexuality that we had in women because men were taking women to be their wives, right? And men wouldn't just let a woman take their woman from them. You know what I'm saying? Because men were going to like a lesson that the brother Isaiah did. Men were going to war over women. You know what I'm saying? But what happened was, man, we started, looking into Rome and Egypt, and we started looking into Greece and how they treat their women. And like the video said, man, our oppressors started influencing our women to step out of their role and start opening their eyes. They bit that tree of knowledge, right? And what happened was they say, you know what? I should be treated like this. You know what? I should be able to make the decision about that. You know what? I should have the right to do X, Y, and Z. Not knowing that they were being treated tender and delicate like the scripture said they were supposed to be treated. The kind I yield.
Man, and both of those, I guess you could say, examples are exactly why we're in the situation we're in as a people group. Let's go back to the Bible real quick. So before we continue with this document, right, by Elizabeth Cady Stanton, which is called the Document of Sentiments, or the Seneca Falls document, right? Or the Seneca Falls Declaration, or the Declaration of Seneca Falls, right? Whichever way you want to slice the cake. Let's see what the Word of God said about some of the things that we just went into, right? So let's go to Leviticus chapter 18:3 real quick, right? Leviticus 18:3. Because even when we came out of Egypt, which was our first captivity, the Lord told us a key thing. What was the key thing he told us, right? What was the key thing the Lord told us? And we're going to read verse 4 too.
You got it, King.
Leviticus 18:3. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwelt, shall ye not do.
Shall ye do.
Shall ye not do.
Shall ye not do. So everything that the Egyptians did, we weren't supposed to follow, right? And people will be smart and say, oh, well, he was just talking about Egypt. He didn't say nothing about Greeks, right? We'll get into that, right? But let's keep reading.
And after the doings of the land of Canaan.
I thought he was just talking about Egyptians, right? But now again, Egyptians are Hamites, right? But again, he wasn't just solely talking about the land of Egypt. He was also talking about the land of Canaan, showing you that he's talking about more than just one land, more than just two lands, right? Keep reading.
Whither I bring you, shall ye not do, neither shall you walk in their ordinances.
Right. Let's read verse 4. What does he say in verse 4?
Verse 4. Salakia too, man, and that just goes to show you, like, when you see a lot of the Egyptian goddesses and a lot of the Egyptian women, getting praised and men bow down to them and stuff. A lot of our women flock to that. That's why a lot of our women wanted to be Egyptians, right? Before they found out that we were Israelites, they wanted to be Egyptians because they saw how women got treated in Egypt. Also, in the land of Canaan, right? Certain tribes in Africa, you could go and watch the woman king, right? And she's trying to be a king alongside the man. You know what I'm saying? Of these doings, we're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to be a warrior and trying to be a woman king and have two kings rule the nation. One king's a woman and one king's the man. You're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to. A lot of us, a lot of our women, we cleave to that video too, because they like the idea of thinking that I could be a king, and so it's not just white people that so-called white people that can influence us. These other nations, like the brother just said, can influence us as well.
Right.
Kind of verse 4 says, ye shall do my judgments and keep mine ordinances to walk therein. I am the Lord your God.
I am the Lord your God, right? Even verse 5. Let's read verse 5.
Verse 5. Ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, which if a man do, he shall live in them. I am the Lord.
So again, the Lord gave us commandment to only walk in his ways. We read it in Deuteronomy 4. We read that in Psalms 119. He didn't give it to nobody else, right? He gave it to us. And we were supposed to be the standard of the earth, the example to follow, right? He told us in Joel 2:27, because I gave this to you and I dealt with you. Listen, remember, I'm your God, right? Nobody else is God, and you should not be ashamed. The problem is we were ashamed of these laws, statutes, and commandments when we see all the money these other nations was getting, right? We was ashamed of the law, statutes, and commandments when people started speaking their own wisdom and not according to the word. And then it was just like, well, I guess that does make sense. But remember, in Deuteronomy 4, we read that we were supposed to be the great nation that people said, this is a wise and understanding people. But the problem is we did not want to hold true to that, right? Let's go to Isaiah 34:16 real quick. Isaiah 34:16. Again, we were supposed to be the wise and understanding people. People were supposed to come to us, look at us, make these decisions. We were supposed to be the big homies. We were supposed to be the nation above all nations, right? We were supposed to be the mountain that people flocked to and came to and sat at the feet at and wanted the wisdom of. The problem is we wanted what they had. We wanted their glory, right? And that's been the problem, right? Let's go ahead, Buck. Go ahead.
Man, and that goes back to the law. We got a law so precious, man, and a law so holy. If we would just keeping it, that would make the nations want to come to us, man. Because if you look at how they doing things now, they lawless, right? The heathens do whatever they want to do, man. Do whatever please their flesh. But if we was in rulership and we was keeping the laws and commandments, they would be like, dang, they don't eat pork, shrimp, and lobster. I see why, right? Because it give you health issues and things like that. They don't worship other gods. What, they got a day that they rest on? Oh, that's crazy. And that's why, when Lord willing, when Christ come back, he's going to be ruling us with the law, man. He's going to be teaching the law. If the whole world is going to be governed by the law, man, because the law is holy. Like Paul said, and I want to say in Romans 7:12, how the law is holy.
Holy and just and good.
Con.
Right, man. Hey, let's read this in Isaiah 34:16 real quick.
Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read.
And do what?
And read.
Right. Wait. Before we go any further on this, hold this and get Revelation 1 and 3. right?
Mm-hmm.
Get Revelation 1 and 3.
Yeah.
Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. Why is it important that we should read, right? Why is it important that we should read? Remember that question, right? What does Revelation 1 and 3 say?
Revelation chapter 1 and verse 3. Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand.
Listen, it's important to read, or it's imperative to read, because blessed is he that readeth, right? The only way you're going to understand something is to read, right? The best thing that we always tell people to do is when you trying to learn about who the most high God is, stop listening, right, to philosophy and vain deceit that Colossians 2 and 8 tells us to beware of, right? Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit. Stop listening to these smooth things that Isaiah 30 and 10 speaks of, right? We need to start listening to the words of the Lord. And the only way we can listen to the words of the Lord is if we put our eyes to that parchment and we put our eyes to that paper and we read the words of the Lord, and we can hear these things. We can hear the Lord speak, right? People think hearing the Lord speak is like some you sitting down chilling and it's some audible voice, right? Now, granted, those can happen on occasion, right? You can have a voice speak to you, and people have had experiences like that, right? Even I myself, Azrael, the brother Azrael even said he had an experience like that where he heard a voice one time. But that's not necessarily the audible voice of the Lord. When we saying seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read so we can hear his voice, we're talking about hear the words that he spoke to the prophets, right? Hear the statutes, judgments, commandments that he gave us. That's why Isaiah 34 and 16, we should seek out of the book of the Lord and read. Because if we read, we can hear what the Lord is saying, right? Let's keep reading. Let's finish this verse on out.
Isaiah 34 and 16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail. None shall want her mate. For my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them.
Right. Hey, look, the spirit of the Lord has gathered us. Through the mouth of the prophet Isaiah, it was commanded, but through the mouth of the Lord, it was really commanded, right? So we got to be readers of the word, right? But not only hearers of the word. We can't just hear the words of the Lord. Because why? Let's pull that up in what is that? Luke 14, I want to say, or Luke 11, or is that Luke 2? Or no, wait, I'm tripping. That's Romans.
What you looking for, King?
Not only the hearers of the word are just before God, but the doers of the word shall be justified. That's what it says. I want to say that's Romans, though. I don't know why I'm thinking Luke. I want to say that's Romans 2. Romans chapter 2, I want to say that is.
James.
That's James?
James 1 and 22. You talking about James?
Go
Be
to
ye
Romans.
doers of the word.
No. Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. We'll go to Romans 2 real quick. I know it's in Romans. I know it's in Romans. I ain't tripping. Romans 2, go to 11. Let me see. Is that verse 11? Nope. Keep going. No, it's right there. 13. Right there in 13. I'll read it. It says, Romans 2 and 13, for not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified, right? So we need to be doers of the law of God. We not only need to read and hear what he's saying, right? Because again, it is blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, right? So you can read and understand and comprehend, but it's not about whether you understand and comprehend. It's about whether you apply it to your life or not, whether you choose to walk in the Lord's ways or not, right? So that's why it's important to know there has to be a just balance to everything, because I don't want nobody to take me quoting Isaiah 30, us reading Isaiah 34 and 16 and then go to read Revelation 1 and 3 and think that all you have to do is read. Nah, you got to read and you got to apply, because if you do both, you will keep yourself from being in situations that our people are in through influence of the oppressors, right? Let's go to the book of Proverbs 3 and 31, because I'm just getting, or is it 30? Proverbs 31. Go to 31 and 3. Proverbs 31 and 3. Excuse me. I'm having a little misquoting session going on right now, but it's through the Spirit. We'll get it together. Nope. 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 No. 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 Wait. We can use this though. We can use this, right? I'll read this too. Proverbs 31:3. Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. Again, like we talked about last week on Monday, right? Monday Night Live, right? I think the title was Women versus the King versus Wine, or Women versus Wine versus the King, right? Nonetheless, the topic was going into how much control and power that women truly have. And through even this lesson right now, we're seeing how that has been manifested even in ancient times, before I was born, before the brother Obadiah was born, before the brother Azrael was born. These things, nothing new under the sun, pretty much is what I'm saying. So the thing that which hath been is that which shall be. And all I'm saying is that when we come on here and do lessons, we're not speaking from stuff that never happened before and we're making stuff up. No, a lot of these events actually happen. When we're saying that men have run out of their wits for women, we see it every day in our lives. We see men killing men over women. I used to work security. I had a security officer under me. I'm not going to reveal her name, but she explained to me her situation was her children were without their father because her boyfriend and their child's father got into an argument about her and they killed each other. Don't know how it happened. Don't know. I don't even know how true that actually is, but it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me, being that I have seen men even kill women over their desire to that woman. When men say I love you to death, it's kind of scary at the same time, because it can be sweet, but it can be scary because there's some men that aren't right in the mind, and because they love that woman so much, they'll kill her before they let another man have her.
And it was kind of like, well, I think this situation more like two women. There's the singer Selena and her. I think her managers I think her managers end up killing her because she was obsessed with her. I want to say, so she was so obsessed with Selena that she ended up killing her. So that's a real thing, man.
Yeah.
People be obsessed with their spouse. They just, they kill them.
Right. It is crazy. But again, that's why the Lord, the wisdom that's given here was, look, don't give your strength unto women. And there's a lot of men right now who had a hand in helping Elizabeth Cady Stanton push this feminist doctrine out into the world. Why? Because they made women their strength, right? They didn't know true order and structure. They didn't know their role as a man. So they followed after this woman, and then they made themselves kind of subservient unto her. And then now you have generations of just straight madness going on, because again, we lost the true structure of a household, right? We lost the true setup, what God had set up for us. Now, let's go to Proverbs 3:31. Proverbs 3:31, right?
It's like the lady, my bad. The lady was the president of her fan club and manager. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just want to clear that.
But even in the situation you brought out, women killing a woman through envy and jealousy, or being the president of your fan club, you can be obsessed with a woman so much that it'll cause men and women to crash out. Matter of fact, the LGBTQ community doesn't want to accept the fact that the relationships that lead in domestic violence are not even heterosexual relationships. It's homosexual relationships, specifically race relationships between women and women. Women are the biggest abusers of women in relationships, right? The statistics show that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's not always just men. I think men are the majority by far. But like the brother Obadiah said, there are even cases of women crashing out behind women. And that's why we can't sit up here and run out of our wits for women, right? We got to love and treat women as we treat ourselves, like Christ told us. But at the same time, we got to keep a just balance, right? We got to know our position. This is Proverbs 3:31. It says, envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. Again, we were supposed to be that great nation that people went to for wisdom, but we started choosing the oppressor's ways because we liked what they had over what the Lord gave us. Comparison is the thief of joy. Because our grass is greener, Our grass is greener than the other nations. The Lord gave us grass that was way greener. The problem is we had to water it and till it and keep and work on it a lot more. We had to put in a lot more work for our yard to stay as green as it did. And the thing about it is, in the eyes of the Lord, he really didn't make it hard for us. It wasn't even necessarily hard work. It was just work that we didn't feel like doing because we seen they had green grass and they was doing little to nothing. We got to keep the Sabbath. Why we got to keep the Sabbath? We got to wear fringes. Why we got to wear fringes? They got money. They ain't got fringes. They got money. They don't got to keep the Sabbath. They can work on the Sabbath. They can work 7 days a week. Why we got to choose one day to rest? Comparison is the thief of joy. Little things that the Lord told us to do to keep our grass green, we had a problem with doing. Even when we came out of Egypt, we was complaining that, man, we should have went back to Egypt. We should have died in there because we going to die in this wilderness because we ain't got no food. You burnt up all our food, Lord. What we going to do? You drowned all our food. What we going to do? Comparison is the thief of joy. And that's why we end in predicaments, because when you have women like Elizabeth Cady Stanton who envy and resent their men or the men of the community or the men of the church, right? Whichever way you want to slice the cake. When you have women that envy their role and they want to be in the man's role, now you begin to lose order and structure, right? Let's go to 1 Corinthians 11. 1 Corinthians 11 and 3, right? Because again, go ahead.
What was the question that you posed to the sister at camp about submission? And I think that's what a lot of even her creating this that's saying that women are equal to men. I think the whole thing was the issue was submission. They didn't want to be submissive or feel like they're below the man. They want to do what the man do. They don't want to feel like they got to obey the man. So yeah, that's why you got to. I just want to say that.
Con. Hey, can you read this too? Brother Obadiah, can you read 1 Corinthians 11 and 3? This it right here.
Con. This book of head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God.
Con, I think you kind of lagging a little bit, but nonetheless, man, the brother just read it. You know, there's order and structure, right? So the big brother Paul, he was the one who, you know, had this written out, right? But again, it's just detailing the very structure of a household that we should have set up. You know, the head of the woman is the man. You know, the head of every man is Christ, right? And the head of who the world calls Jesus Christ is the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? There's order and structure for a reason, because again, the Lord is not the author of confusion. That's 1 Corinthians 14 and 33, right? God is not the author of confusion, or 14 and 34, whichever one. But nonetheless, we have to remember that because he's not the author of confusion, we should want to have a little bit more structure in our lives, because what you have nowadays is straight confusion, right? Let's go back to that document of sentiments, the Declaration of Sentiments, right? So as you can see, this is not a fake document, an article that we just made up to have a lesson to talk about. This is a real document, and this is the real beginning of the origin of the feminist movement. Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She is the founder of the feminist movement. Of course, it was a woman, and of course, it was a so-called white woman. The problem is the effect that it has had on Black and Hispanic households, even in today's time. We have podcasts of women saying that they don't really want, you know, real submission, right? Even yesterday, you know, we talked to a group of sisters and their mom, which is what led me to talk about this topic, because I had a whole nother topic, but what led me to talk about this topic in specific is that the mother and her daughters, well, I put it like this. The mother raised her daughters well, right? Gave them a right mind. One of the daughters was married. One of them had just graduated college. One of them was just going into college, right? The younger sister that was in her freshman year of college, just going to college, her answer was generally like the answer of a lot of sisters in today's world. You know, yeah, if he's paying for everything, I'll submit to him. You know, but again, there's a reason why we shouldn't want to be like everybody else. We should kind of want to set the tone. We should kind of want to be the standard in the earth because it never works out for us. You know, when we get hit hard, right? And the problem is that people don't consider their actions and how it affect the generations to come, right? Let's go to the book of Second Esdras, chapter 3, right? Second Esdras, chapter 3. In the Apocrypha. I can't remember the exact verse I want to start at, right? But long story short, man, this is just Ezra going on a long rant, speaking with the angel about, you know, how it's low-key kind of unfair how the other nations get to do what they want to do. But when it comes to us, you know, we got to get policed, right? Keep going. Keep going down. I mean, we could read all that, but I want to get more to the point, right? I recommend everybody go read Second Esdras chapter 3 because it goes along the lines of what we're saying, right? Let's see. Let's start right there. Let's start right here. Yeah, let's start at verse 28. Second Esdras 3 and 28. If somebody want to read.
Yeah. This is the book of Second Esdras, chapter 3 and verse 28. Are their deeds then any better that inhabit Babylon, that they should therefore have the dominion over Zion?
Right. You know, let's keep reading.
For when I came thither and had seen what it say, impieties,
the impieties.
Yeah.
Impieties without number, then my soul saw many evildoers in the 13th year, so that my heart failed me.
Now let's look up what impieties mean real quick, right? To get context to people who don't know. Let's look at what impieties mean. Right? Lack of piety or reverence, right? Especially for God. You know what I'm saying? So pretty much lack of reverence, you know, for the Most High God. And that's what Ezra saw in Babylon, right? But let's go back to Second Esdras 3.
Kind of like what we seeing now.
Right.
A lot of our people lack love and respect, you know, for the God of Israel.
Yeah, same thing, right? Now let's keep reading.
Verse 30. For I have seen how thou suffereth them sinning, and has spared wicked doers, and has destroyed thy people, and has preserved thy enemies, and has not signified it.
So what he's saying pretty much is that, listen, you sitting up here doing us all kinds of ways, right? And you see these evildoers, these wicked, these heathens, and you kind of like turning an eye, right? You kind of not doing nothing to them, but you putting it all on us, right? Let's keep reading.
I do not remember how this way may be left. Are they then of Babylon better than they of Zion?
So you saying the Babylonians are better than us because they doing iniquity and you ain't doing nothing about it, but we doing iniquity and now we're captive to them? They're better than us? They're lords over us, right? Let's read.
Or is there any other people that knoweth thee beside Israel? Or what generation hath so believed thy covenant as Jacob? As Jacob.
Right, like have you forgotten that you gave us your law, statutes, and commandments, right? What other people that you gave your commandments to that actually kept them, right? Let's keep reading.
And yet their reward appeareth not, and their labor hath no fruit. For I have gone here and there through the heathen, and I see that they flow in wealth and think not upon thy commandments.
So they're flowing in wealth and they're not even thinking of your commandments, right? This is how our people think even in today's time, right? We look at these other nations, we look at the lack of responsibility that they have, and we see the wealth that they get, And we associate their wealth with their lack of responsibility. And that's why we want to do away with the following of the commandments of the Lord to a T, like we should be. Because other nations didn't have to do it. We did. But we was jealous that they didn't have to do it to get rich. And we had to do it to keep our riches. We had to do it to sustain our riches. And we got jealous over that, right? But then now this is Ezra just going and complaining to the Lord like, dang, man, why are we going through it so bad? These other nations ain't, and they're not even keeping your commandments. You know? Go ahead, Obadiah.
It kind of reminds you like when you have kids, like just say when we was children, right? And you may have had your parents, right? They were strict on certain things they wanted you to do. Like they were strict on you coming home at a certain time and what time you go to sleep. And then you may be looking at your homeboys. His parents let him do whatever they want to do. Like they come on whenever they want to come home. They stay up late, and it's like you looking at them like, man, how he get to do that? Like he ain't getting punished. Like he ain't got no curfew. He ain't got he ain't getting no whoopings. But
he
I
don't even
am.
get good grades.
You said what, King?
He don't even get good grades.
Yeah, he don't even get good grades. But yeah, he get to do what he want to do. So that's the same thing, kind of like how we was looking at the other nations, like, and our people still say this to this day. How the so-called white man get to do all this to our people and he still get to prosper and he rich and we getting punished and we ain't really did this the high crime like he did. So a lot of our people still ask the same questions and still feel the same way, man. What you got, King?
I mean, even in the truth sometimes, man, I find myself going down this same rabbit hole in my mind that Ezra went down, right? When he was speaking with the angel of the Lord, I think about it sometimes, man. I mean, like, bruh, I be going through it, and I be like, Lord, man, I strive to keep your commandments diligently, Lord. I keep the Sabbath. Matter of fact, when jokers ask me to work on the Sabbath day, man, I kind of repel it because, I'm like, I got to stand bold, I do my best in my earnest to walk in thy ways, Lord. Like, but the heathen over here, he flowing in wealth, he flowing in riches, he flowing in abundance. And he don't even acknowledge who you are. Like, why do I gotta go through that? My mind goes through these same things, man. And that's important to know because again, we want to make the Bible real life. We want to show you how it applies to our lives each and every day, more than the average person may think. These ain't just some these false character folks. Like these aren't some fictional characters. I couldn't get it out, right? These characters are non-fiction, right? This is a non-fiction book. This book is a fact, and it dealt with real people that had real emotions, and it's the same emotions that we have till this day, right? But let's finish this out. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say another quick point, King. Just another quick point. This is why the kingdom of heaven gonna be so great and nothing like it, man. Because this is gonna be a gift to the people that endure. So it's like the people that's truly keeping the commandments, like the brother Isaiah said. He ain't working on the Sabbath, man. You know what I'm saying? He had to be staying bold. So it's like the Most High seeing these things. He's seeing how this brother choosing not to make money, to keep the Sabbath. So he preparing a kingdom for the brothers, the sisters, and the children that didn't compromise and that stood boldly, even though they could have made some extra change to prosper in Babylon. They said, nah, I'm gonna be patient because I trust in the Lord, man. So that's why we always have to if we ever get in a situation to how Ezra was thinking and how sometimes we all think, we got to think about that kingdom, man, right? Because that's the reward at the end of the day if we endure, man, and just stay patient and wait upon the Lord. But you got
right.
King.
Nah, go ahead. You can read this in verse 34. You can read 34 through 36. We can finish it out.
This is the book of what this is.
First Esdras chapter 3, verse 34. Second Esdras 3 and 34.
Okay. This is the book of Second Esdras chapter 3 and verse 34. Weigh thou therefore our wickedness now in the balance, and there's also that dwell in the world, and so shall thy name nowhere be found but in Israel. Keep going.
Yeah, come on.
Okay. Oh, when was it Or when was it that they which dwell upon the earth have not sinned in thy sight? Or what people have so kept thy commandments? Thou shalt find that Israel by name has kept thy precepts, but not the heathen.
Which is why we should not envy thy oppressor, right? Because our people were the people that were keeping the commandments of the Lord, because it was given to us, and we were supposed to be the standard, and we were supposed to be the wise and understanding people, and we were supposed to seek out a book of the Lord and read, right? We were supposed to do all these things to ensure that we're on the path that the Lord directed for us to be on, right? When you worried about somebody else's lane and you want to be on what they own, then you got to accept what comes with it. And what comes with it is destruction, right? But that's the problem. Our people are so selfish nowadays, right? And even Elizabeth Cady Stanton was a selfish woman because she didn't think about the generations to come. She felt how she felt in her time, and she said, I want to make a difference. And the difference she made was a terrible one. And shame on those men who even co-signed on the feminist movement, right? Because again, the sister Candace Owens did a debate with a bunch of people sitting at a table on this platform. I forgot the name of it, but she was going into the feminist movement has destroyed America and its families thereof, right? Which I don't care about them. Let me rephrase that. I care about America enough because I'm a citizen of that country, right? But my faith is not in the system of America. My faith is in the system that the Most High God has set up, which is the keeping of the law, statutes, and commandments, right? The problem is that there's too many people that want to use the system for self-advantage and not advantage of community, right? We don't have enough people thinking about the greater good of everybody. You think you winning, you one person. You don't represent the majority of your people, right? It's only the top 1% that got money, right? And if you're somebody like LeBron, even P. Diddy before these things, Jay-Z, right? And you're not truly looking out for the people, that's the problem that we're in. I'm not saying those men haven't donated money to people before, but what I'm saying is with the black men that we have and these financial positions that we do, brothers have done a lesson on it before. We should have way more than what we have. But the problem is we envy what the oppressor has. We want what the oppressor wants. When we get hella money, we want to go buy foreign cars. When we get hella money, we want to go buy these designer, right? Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior, you know what I'm saying? Adamar Beget, right? We want to go buy all these expensive designer brand things, and we don't want to look out for the community. Let me, if I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, let me go to the hood in Ohio and just see what buildings need to be restored, because guess what? I'm gonna go build it up. If I'm from Akron, Ohio, I'm going to do that. You know what I'm saying? If I'm from New York, I'm going to do that. If I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, I'm going to do that. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, we don't have a sense of community no more, right? Why? Because we chose what the oppressor wanted. We don't have no structure in our lives. We don't know who the head of the household is no more. Somehow, some heads of the household are women, and it was set up to be that way by the oppressor because they want to keep our people oppressed, right? They know who we are. They know the truth about who we are. The problem is we don't want to know who we are, right? Let's go to Isaiah 1:3 real quick. So I got like two more scriptures. But I want to bring up one more point after we read Isaiah 1:3 in that Seneca Falls declaration, right? Let's read this in Isaiah 1:3. You muted, King. You muted.
Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 3. The ox goeth his owner, and the ass his master's crib, but Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider.
Look, the ox is a dumb animal, but even they know, or even the ass is a dumb animal, but even they know their master's crib. They know their owner, right? But we don't know, and we don't even consider. Because why? We go to the white men's schools to learn who we are, right? And they don't really teach us who we are. We're learning about every other nation and kingdom on the face of the earth, but where did the so-called Negroes come from? A lot of us, yeah, they say we were already here, but what about the ones that weren't here? What about the ones that came from a different land, right?
Right.
Who do those people represent, right? Why don't we talk about the Negroes in America, the Hispanics in America before they were in those lands, right? Why don't we talk about the seven major trades in the world enough, right? Why don't we talk about the Balfour Declaration? Why don't we talk about the Alhambra Decree, right? Why don't we talk about the Rosewood Massacre and why don't we talk about these things in the schools? You know, like the brother Naquan from WFI said one time when he was talking to a sister, people think it's just out of pure hate for so-called white people, and that's not what we get on here to do, is spew hate. We want to get on here and spew love to our people, to tell them they need to hate certain systems that were set up by certain people, because it's not just so-called white people that had a hand in our oppression. It's every nation under heaven that had a hand in our oppression, right? It's not just one color of people, it's a multicolored people. Egyptians are as dark as I am, the ancient ones are. So it's not just a hate for so-called white people. It's a hate for a system that was set up for us to lose, and we wanted to follow it. And that's what we got to hate, right? Let's go back to that document one more time. And then we can wrap up, because I know we've been on here pretty long, right? So again, you can do your own research on this document. I didn't want to go too detailed and dissect it. We read what we read from it. It's just, I just wanted to give like a little introductory, a little taste, you know, a little sip, a shot of, you know, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and the Declaration of Sentiments, which is known as the Seneca Falls Declaration of 1848, you know, which was, again, kind of set up similar to mimic the Declaration of Independence, but it was a declaration that women wanted to be equal to men, right? So that's the beginning of the feminist movement. Literally, if you Google what is the origin of the feminist movement, history will point back to the Declaration of Sentiments, right? Because it's a declaration that a woman said women need to start being equal to men. I'm getting tired of being treated like this. Now there's cases where women were getting used and abused, right? Treated unholy, like according to the word of the Lord. My thing is though, is that if that's your situation, look at the man and not look at the entire system, you know? And I think that because we tried to attack the system, the structure, it's caused us to fail greatly, right? Now, if you could, Brother Azrael, go to that, you know, those 3 bars and go to the Women's Bible section of this website. Yeah, right there, Women's Bible. Right? Now, this woman, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, right? Elizabeth Cady Stanton, she was such I guess you could say an advocate for women and equality, that she created a whole women's Bible and had it authorized, right? And the reason being is because she read and felt like there were some things in the Bible that were very misogynistic. So she sought to have an edition of the Bible that kind of reworded a lot of the things that were written, you know? Now, we're not going to read all this. Did you want to read what you highlighted, Azrael?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, Con, you can go ahead.
It says in 1895, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, a committee of other women published the Women's Bible. And in 1888, the Church of England published its revised version of the Bible, the first major revision in English since the authorized version of 1611, better known as the King James Bible.
Matter of fact, let's read this whole first passage, this whole first paragraph, right? Let's finish this out.
It says, dissatisfied with the translation and with the failure of the committee to consult with or include biblical scholar Julia Smith, the reviewing committee, in quotation marks, published their comments on the Bible. Their intent was to highlight the small part of the Bible that focused on women, as well as to correct biblical interpretations, which they believed was biased unfairly against women.
To correct biblical interpretation, which they believe was biased unfairly against women. Now, I've dealt with arguments with people before that used to say the Bible was a misogynistic book, and it's not by Bible. It's not. Matter of fact, go watch the lesson that we did last week, Monday, on this channel, and you will see that we actually give women a lot of praise, right? But there has to be balance. You know, there has to be balance. There has to be structure and order. And the truth is, when the Lord set up the kingdom of Israel, the ones who he had performing the miracles, the judgments, the ones who he had performing the sacrifices, the ones who he had performing the atonements, all of those were men. The Lord was using the men. He was dealing with the men, right? Now, there were female prophetesses, you know? So let's not act like there has been no women in positions of, I guess you could say, importance at all in Israel. Matter of fact, the Most High even has the wisdom in the word in the book of First Ezra chapter 4 when it speaks on how of everything came women, right? Every man that's on the face of the earth came from a woman. And it's highlighting the importance of the role that the women plays in the community. So people, the only people who say the Bible is misogynistic is people who really don't read the Bible and read it to understand it. They just kind of want to read it to find something that kind of fits their narrative, and they take it out of context and they put it in whatever article and document, and they make it up in their mind that, oh, the Bible is not supporting women at all, and that's a lie. It is a lie, right? But again, let's go back to Psalms 147 and 19 real quick. Remember this part: to correct biblical interpretation, which they think was unbiased, or which they think was unfairly biased against women, right? I want to go to 2 points. Psalms 147, 19 again, right? I'll read it. Psalms 147, 19. He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel, right? Let's read verse 20. What does it say? He hath not dealt so with any nation, and as far as his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord, right? Now you got people thinking that, oh, I'm going to correct the interpretation given. I'm going to correct what's actually said, right? Because I think I'm bigger than God because I feel how I feel, you know, and that's madness, right? Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 2. Deuteronomy 4 and 2. I promise we finna wrap it up, you know. Long suffer just a little bit longer, man. Long suffer just a little bit longer. I promise we ain't gonna be too long, right? Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 2, right? What does this read? It says, ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it, that ye may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. You shall not add nor take away from the word of the Lord, man. It's a sin according to the Most High God. And that's what Elizabeth Cady Stanton wanted to do, kind of correct some of the writings in the Torah that she disagreed with. I want to highlight everything that's good for women, but everything that's bad on women that I think that's bad, I want to just throw it away. That don't make sense, man. You know? And then you have a lot of women that support this feminist movement because of one woman back in the 1800s, right? And her false intuition, her false sense of, I guess you could say, awareness. She wasn't looking out for women of the future. She was destroying y'all. Women have it harder now. Women literally have it harder. Not only do you face the pressure of excelling in school, but even after you graduate and get your degree, you're going to face the pressure of finding a job. Not only after you're going to face the pressure of finding a job, you're going to face the pressure of excelling at that job. Not only that, you're going to face the pressure of getting married, wanting to have children, being a good mother, and learning how to balance that work-home life relationship. There's a lot of things that were put on women that women didn't need through the actions of Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Now, I'm not speaking against women going to college, you know, in today's time. I'm not going to say, you know, it's beneficial, but what I will say is that, you know, you're going to get from it what you get from it. If a degree is what you want to get truly from it, then that's what you're going to go get. You're going to get your degree, right? If you want to meet people for a lifelong friendship, then that's what you're going to get. You know, you're going to get from it what you get from it. But my thing is that, again, it has done more damage to good, especially to those of Black and Hispanic households, because now a lot of our women don't want to be traditional wives no more. They don't want to submit to the man to be the authority. Now it has to come with a transaction. Oh, the only way I'm going to submit is if he's paying every last bill. And it's low-key harder for men nowadays to deal with that, because a lot of these women who are demanding men to have it that way, a lot of these women are already used goods. And what I mean by used goods is, I mean, you've already giving yourself over to another man before sexually. You probably already have children, right? It's a system set up for men to fail, even as a husband and father in this society, to an extent, right? You got to be a strong-minded man. So I'm not going to be the brother to always bash the brothers. I'm going to speak highly of the brothers and say that brothers have it hard. Sisters have it hard too. We all have it hard. The problem is the system that we choose to follow wants us to be divided rather than unified. Because again, welfare was even created to get rid of the black man in the household, right? Now we know that there's more white people on welfare, right? But at the end of the day, it's not about there's more white people on welfare. It's the fact that the destruction that it did to the black community was worse. Black households were set up to fail with welfare. Black men were given the piss poorest jobs, the lowest pay, and they struggled to provide for their families. In turn, women started thinking about the actions of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and they said, you know what, I'll go work. I'll bring in the bread. And they got it in their heads that they went to go work. They started bringing in the bread, right? And now all of a sudden, they think that their husband need to submit to them. They going out and cheating and sleeping with other men, right? Because they feel like I'm in a position to do so because I pay the bills. And that's madness. That's madness. But that's what you get from following the oppressor, choosing their ways. In this same chapter in Deuteronomy 4, like we read earlier, we were supposed to be the wise and understanding people. We didn't. But like the brother Azrael had us read a few times at camp yesterday, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, right? Because we don't know who we are, because we don't want to know who we are, because we don't really want to know who the Lord is, because we don't want to deal with the ethnicity and race of who the world calls Jesus Christ, because we don't want to deal with order and structure, we're destroyed. We don't know nothing. And we got to change and get to the point where we know a little something, right? I had one more precept to bring out. Amos 3:2. Amos 3:2, right?
I think the brother Obadiah was gonna say something.
Oh, go ahead, brother. My bad.
Now you good. I think you had said I was gonna say what I was gonna say about welfare, how they were trying to get the man at the household, you know.
Yeah.
So you said what I was gonna say.
Salakia, man. Salakia.
Now you good. All praises.
I also want to say too, man, when you look at whether it's a woman's Bible, look at the slave Bible, whether it's Trump's Bible, right? When you look at all of these, they have one thing in common. They are oppressors, right? Oppressors have, once again, an innate nature, right? An inclination to steal and rob and to change, right? So they will look at something and see how great something is and still can't let it be. They have to put their own twist on it every time. When you look at the nation of Israel, a lot of times, man, we didn't do what we were supposed to do, which was to conquer a lot of nations, right? We were supposed to conquer the Canaanites, the Philistines when we first came in, and Joshua and them couldn't do it. They ended up making them tributaries, right? Pretty much making agreements with them. Even that one nation that we made a covenant with, right? Instead of doing what God told us to do. It's really not in our nature to control and to conquer for real. That's why we need our big brother Christ to come back, because he's gonna have that spirit on him, and he's gonna put that spirit on some of us. But what I will say is our oppressors, it's in their nature to rob, pillage, and steal, and to change, right? And so you're gonna have people that are spoiled, like this woman, and like the Brits that put us in slavery and things of that nature, right? Want to take out, right? Add and subtract, want to focus on what they want to focus on, want to rename stuff, right? You're gonna have them do that. Why? Because they're narcissists, all of them, right? And because they all have that innate nature in them to change and to oppress.
I lied. Because you said what you said, I gotta get two more scriptures. We're gonna keep this and we're gonna read this at the end, but there's two other scriptures that I want to go to because you said what you said. But you can go ahead, Obadiah.
Y'all were gonna say, man, yeah, like if you think about it, man, if Yahushua would have gave our people a choice right now, like do y'all want me to spare them and just forget them and don't do nothing to them, or y'all want me to avenge them for y'all? A lot of our people just say, just forget about it. Don't
Forgive
do
them.
it. Just forgive them. You ain't got to do that. It was in the past. You know, we reparations. No, we passed that. You don't got to do that. So, like the brother said, this is why, you know, he's gonna do it, because he's gonna be in the spirit. He's seeing the stuff that we didn't see behind that, the things that was done behind the scenes. So he's already angry. So this is why he's not leaving it up to us. He's gonna do it. He's gonna do it regardless. But you got it, King.
Con. So whole Amos 3 and 2, man. Go to the book of Exodus 14 and 4, right? I wanted to bring that out because of what you said. You know, it's not in our nature to want to do conquer and, you know, rob and kill, right? And I want to add to that. I want to even twist it a little bit, right? So I agree with the brother Azrael point, and I want to bring it with an even different perspective, right? Wait a minute, is that 14 and 4? What am I looking for? Go to dang, this ain't what I, where does it say? I know it's 4. Go to, type in, the Lord shall fight for you and ye shall hold your peace. Which one is that? I know it's in Exodus 14 and 14. There it is. There it is. There it is right there. 14 and 14. 14 and 14. There it is. Con. Right. So look, man, I'll read it. Exodus 14 and 14, right? It says, the Lord shall fight for you and ye shall hold your peace, right? So the brother Azrael hit it on the head. It wasn't in our nature to want to go fight and conquer people, right? That's the reason why the Lord gave us the Ark of the Testimony, because when we carried that with us, he was in the midst of us. And when we went to go conquer these lands, it wasn't really us doing it. It was the Lord giving us the strength, right? So it was really the Lord moving on our behalf to get these things done, right? Yeah, we were acting it out like it reads in Jeremiah 51. You know, we're the Lord's battle axes. We're his weapons of war, right? But it's not really us. It's the spirit that the Lord put inside of us to get this thing done, right? So when it reads, the Lord shall fight for you and ye shall hold your peace, it's literally what it meant. I mean, granted, yeah, we know he's talking about bringing us out of Egypt. You know, we're not going to be the ones to do anything. The Lord is going to give us a way out. But it's never changed, really. When we were walking with the Lord and we were obeying his commandments, it never was a situation where we had to fight. We always just held our peace and the Lord did the work for us. It never changed. So the brother Azrael hit it kind of spot on. Now, the other precept I wanted to get was Romans chapter 1 and verse 25, right? Because again, we kind of said this earlier. It's the same thing with Isaiah 5 and 20, where it's like, woe to him that called good evil and evil good. You know, we've had a changing of the norm. We've had a changing of the truth. And the problem with that is that it's caused us to live a lie, right? This is Romans 1 and 25. It says, who changed the truth of God into a lie and worship and serve the creature more than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. Right? Who changed the truth of God into a lie? Who changed the structure of God into a lie? Right? Everything that the Lord said, it was the truth. Everything that the Lord had the prophet say was the truth because it came from the Lord. So who changed that into a lie? None other than Satan, right? Let's keep reading on this though, right? Verse 26. It says, for this cause God gave them up to vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature, right? Our women even started laying with each other. They started, instead of being the women that teach the young women, instead of the aged women teaching the young women, teaching them to be modest, teaching them the commandments of the Lord, instead of the women teaching the children, now the children are raising their parents low-key. You got children my age nowadays talking more sense into their parents than their parents ever taught into them, right? This is not a lie, right? What did the brother say? It said it's like when your mom take you, hold on, you can put this on the screen. Let me put this on the screen. The brother denied through the spirit, Shalom, but he said it's like when your mom take you to the kid in the neighborhood that's been bullying you and tells you to beat him up, but you scared. Man, if y'all go watch Raising Canaan, that's literally how it starts out. I think that's how it starts out. At least that's the episode I started with. He got bullied and beat up. His mom took him, back to the same spot he got beat up and told him to go handle that, or you're gonna have to deal with me. You know what I'm saying? And that's the truth. Right? Let's keep reading on this though. Next verse. Let's go to the next verse. Verse 27. Right? It says, and likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the women, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves the recompense of their error, which was meet, which means which was just, which was expedient, right? Because at the end of the day, you know who leads statistics in HIV/AIDS? So-called Negroes. You want to know where it comes from? Homosexuality, right? Again, these things are consequences of our actions. Again, receiving in ourselves the recompense of our error, which was meet, which was just, right? It's not natural for a woman. It's not natural for a woman, Salakia, but it's not natural for a woman to be serving as the head of the household, ordering the man around, ordering the children around, right? Again, women did have authority over the sons. We read that in our lesson, right? But the order was the man was the head of the house. He was the one who set the standard. And the woman added unto what the woman added unto the foundation that the man laid, right? But when Elizabeth Cady Stanton came in, she wanted to change all that and make our women more masculine than feminine, right? So now a man can't even want to be with the woman who's feminine and soft and wouldn't want to, set her sole of her foot upon the dust of the earth, right? Now we got to accept the women who's going to talk to you crazy any kind of way, and we going to just chalk it up to that's just how she is. I got to accept that because ain't no other women going to love me. And I'm going to tell you, brother, that's a lie, right? But let's go to Amos 3 and 2, right? Let's go to Amos 3 and 2. If anybody's dealing with the same problems that Ezra faced when he was ranting to the Lord, these other nations don't get punished for what they do. Why do we get punished? Matter of fact, let's go to verse 1. Let's start at verse 1. You can make it wide. We can read 1 and 2 real quick. I don't mind reading it. But this is Amos chapter 3, starting at verse 1. It says, hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. Again, the reason that we're getting done the worst is because the Lord only dealt with us the same way he said in Joel 2 and 27, the same way he said in Psalms 147:19, the same way he tried to get us to understand in Deuteronomy chapter 4, the same way he tried to tell us in Leviticus 18, I am the Lord your God. I am the Lord, right? He told us over and over again he was our God. And this is why when we follow after the oppressor's ways, when we allow the oppressor to be our influence, we get done the worst because the Lord is our parent. Like the brother Nanal and Azrael like to bring up at camp when we read Amos 3, it's like you at a park, and like the brother Obadiah said earlier, you at a park and you a parent, right? And I'm a parent. The brothers are parents on the screen. We can use ourselves as an example. If I tell my son not to do something, it doesn't matter if Azrael's son doing it. It doesn't matter if brother Obadiah's daughter is doing it. I told my son not to do it. So when he come back and I chastise him and I say, why you do it? He going to be like, well, because they did it. And then he's going to question, well, why didn't I do nothing to them? And I'm going to tell him, I'm not their father. I'm your father. I told you not to do it. So you were supposed to be the one to not do it. It's the same thing with us with the Lord. Right? He told us to walk in these commandments and statutes and we live. And if we would have done that, we would have everlasting life right now. But instead, we're dealing with shame and contempt. And it's not everlasting. It'll change one day, but we have to renew our minds and change and start following the commandments of the Lord and stop allowing our oppressors to be our influence and start allowing the Most High God and his word to be our influence. Khan, come on. So, I ain't got no other Bible scriptures to bring out, man. Hopefully you all go take time to review the Seneca Falls Declaration on your own. Hopefully you take time to review the Women's Bible on your own. Like the brother Azrael mentioned, the Slave Bible. Take time to review these documents that brothers talk about on the screen and do your own scholarship. So that way, anything that we bring out, if we misquoted something, or you think that there is more talking points that you can build on it from, you can have that ammunition to your advantage, right? Don't take what the brothers say and just leave it at that as law. Go do further research, man. But I don't have nothing else to add. Brothers got anything?
Nah, man, mighty lesson, King.
Very informative, man. Me myself, I didn't. I never looked into the beginning of feminism myself. I just always knew it was crazy, but never looked into the beginning of it or whatever, or the Seneca Falls document. So it's definitely something new for me.
Con. Well, hey, all praise to the Most High through the Spirit, man. This is the brothers from the Hopeful Elect, brother Isaiah, brother Obadiah, brother Azrael, you know, and we got brother Denal in the comments, man. But again, we want to give our praise, glory, and honor be to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we just come to remind you to not allow your oppressor to be your influence, right? We need to influence our oppressors by keeping the commandments of the Lord, because it should be our righteousness, right? And with that, we say, Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.